Hello, thanks for joining me. There's a really good crop of sloes this year, so I decided to take advantage of them and make a really good old-fashioned recipe called hedgerow jelly. It's a bit fiddly, it's a bit messy, it takes ages, but it's really worth it in the end because it tastes delicious and it's full of goodness. So I picked some sloes from these bushes here, and I also went to my local organic dairy farm to pick some rosehips and other fruit, and I found these hawthorn berries, haws, in my garden, so I decided to pick those. Be careful when you're picking berries, don't just assume anything that's red is safe. Do identify the species before you pick them, because there are some red berries in the hedgerows that are definitely not good to eat. I found a few rowan berries that the birds hadn't eaten, and so I introduced those into the jam. They're quite acidic, but they give a nice flavour and lots of vitamin C. And then I rinsed everything through, the sloes and the haws and the rowan berries, and put those in a pan. I also added some windfall apples from the garden, just roughly chopped up, any bad bits taken out, and put those in the pan. So in the pan now I've got about 500 grams of rosehips and crab apples that I got from the dairy farm, 1.25 kilograms, that's 1¼ kilograms of sloes and haws, and about 500 grams of the chopped up apples. Then I added a bit of water. I don't know how much, you just need enough so that it doesn't stick. It was probably about half a pint. And then time to move on to the softer fruit. So I've got some elderberries here. The conventional wisdom is always that you use a fork to separate the berries from the stalks, but I find it's much quicker and easier just to sort of roll them between your fingers, and then they come off fairly easily. And if they're ripe they squash a bit, but it doesn't matter because everything's going to get all squashed up anyway when you start cooking it. So the pan's on now and that fruit is simmering away, and I'll leave it for about half an hour before I add the softer fruit. So that's been cooking for about half an hour now, and as you can see it's pretty soft and the juices are coming out nicely, but some of the crab apples and rosehips are still a little bit hard. But that's been done. It takes about an hour for it to cook down altogether. So at this point, about halfway through the cooking time, I introduce the rest of the soft fruits, which are some blackberries. They're not mouldy, they're frozen. Some blackberries I picked a few days ago, and the elderberries. So that's the mixture. It's cooked down a lot and it's doing pretty well. Those things are getting soft now, so it's time to put in the blackberries and elderberries. Now the mixture does look pretty stiff, but these fruits are very juicy, and that's going to release a lot of juice, and it's going to get a lot wetter in there. Now this is when it's been cooking for a little bit, and you can see now the juices are starting to release. You can see some whole blackberries in there still, so it's not cooked down enough, but it's starting to get quite juicy in there. And now we're going to have a look at what it looks like when it's completely cooked. There we are. Everything's just gone to a kind of mush, and it's thickened up because the pulp's been released from the fruit. Now you're probably wondering why dried peas are an ingredient in jam. They're not. I needed something that's inside the boxes. If you've got a commercial jelly net, one of those nylon ones, that's great. I have, but I couldn't find it. So necessity is the mother of invention. Inside these boxes of dried peas there is a small nylon or possibly muslin net. Yeah, be careful how you open them, you get peas everywhere. And that is going to do for my jelly bag to strain the pulp. So it's just about the right size, and it's stretchy, and there's everything you want there for a jelly bag. Okay, this has got a ladder in, but never mind. Yeah, do be careful how you open the boxes, otherwise you're going to have dried peas all over your kitchen, just like me. Yeah, they get everywhere. Now I found it best to put them over the top of a Pyrex bowl, which is another bit of fun because as soon as you get it over, bong, it pings onto the other side. But if you keep going, after a while you manage to get it over, and then you can secure it with an elastic band which just holds it in place nicely, and that allows you to fill it then with the fruit. I've put about half the fruit from the pan into a bag, so there's 2 bags actually. I think one was 3/4 and one was half, doesn't matter. And then the elastic band comes in handy then for securing off the top of the bag, and then you need to get hold of some sort of piece of string, and then you knot one end and tie it round the top of the bag. Then all you have to do is find somewhere that you can hang the bag or bags over a bowl. I'm lucky in that I've got a kitchen which has 2 convenient doorknobs on top of the doors, and I can hang the 2 bags from there, and then it sits there like 2 severed heads dripping into your jelly bowl. And you want to leave that until it stops dripping. If you make this in the evening, you can leave it overnight and then finish the jam off in the morning, but it does take many hours to drip all that goodness into the bottom of the bowl. So I've left that dripping for several hours, and now I've got 1 pint of juice. Might not seem very much after all that fruit, because there's nearly 2 kilograms of fruit in there. If you wanted more, you could add more water, but it will not taste as good. Okay, now we're going to put in a pound of sugar. For every pint of juice, you want 1 pound of sugar. Stir that in and put it on a low heat. So we want to dissolve that. If you're still seeing sugar crystals like this, that means it's not ready to turn the heat up yet, and it's not time to turn it up onto a rolling boil. So you want it so it's clear and the sugar's dissolved. Can't see any sugar crystals there, and it's all liquid now. Adding a knob of butter in at this stage will help it prevent the sort of scumming thing that you can get. Now we're going to boil it so it looks like a volcano for about 10 minutes, and then it should set. So if it looks like this, you've probably got a set. But the way to test it is take it off the heat, put a little blob on the sauce that you've had in the freezer, rub your finger across it. If it wrinkles, you've got a set. If not, put it back on the boil, give it another few minutes, test it again. Okay, now I've had some jam jars in the oven all the time I've been boiling the jam, so they're sterilised and hot, and I sterilised the lids in boiling water. So it's time to get the sterilised jam funnel out, that was in boiling water too, and time to pot up the jam. Well, that yielded 2 full jars and 1 part jar, which I'll have to eat very quickly, but it's nice. And the taste is absolutely amazing. You can taste all the fruitiness of it. It's lovely. You could have it on toast, or you could have it with cold meats or cold savouries as a sort of relish. It's absolutely lovely. So there we are. Summer in a jar. Hedgerow jelly. Hard work? Is it worth it? Oh yes. If you want the recipe, you'll find it in the description. Thanks for watching.